working on a FBA with your supervising BCBA. While the BCBA interviews the parent, you're with the client, counting how many times the client says, I want to watch Bluey. What data are you taking? All right, a couple things here. First, we're asking about a specific type of data that we are taking. We're asking about our behavior, right? What is an FBA? Well, an FBA is a functional behavior assessment and involves indirect assessments, direct assessments, and functional analyses. So as an RBT, you may assist with these FBAs going into the home or into the clinic with the BCBA and doing what you can to help. In this case, the BCBA is interviewing the parent. They're doing the indirect portion. Meanwhile, you're with the client actually directly observing and counting how many times the client says, I want to watch Bluey. So first instinct is probably frequency, right? You're taking frequency data and you'd be correct. However, when we go down here, frequency data is not an option. We have indirect data, but we just clarified your BCBA is interviewing the parent, meaning they're the ones doing the indirect data recording. We're not taking rate data because there's no time component here, so it can't be rate. We have frequency, we just don't have time. It can't be partial interval data. We're not taking any time sampling data or interval data, right? We're continuously recording this behavior. Partial interval data is a type of discontinuous measurement. It leaves us with event recording. An event recording is essentially just frequency recording. You're counting how many times an event happens. You're recording the number of times the event occurs, in other words. So in this case, client, you're counting how many times the client says, I want to watch Bluey. If you're not taking frequency, then you must be taking event recording. Vocally telling a client to do something directly after delivering the SD might be considered a what? So think for a second on this question. Remember, take your time. Think about the questions. We are vocally telling a client to do something directly after delivering the SD. So it isn't the SD. It just comes directly after the SD and tells the client to do something. So that should immediately in your head trigger the thought of a prompt. What is a prompt? A prompt immediately follows the SD, becomes a temporary SD. In this case, we are prompting the client. Now, what type of prompt are we talking about? Are we talking about a verbal prompt, a gestural prompt, a physical prompt, or corrective feedback? So immediately eliminate D. It's not corrective feedback. Is this a physical prompt? Well, no, we're not physically hand-over-handing the client. We're not physically taking the client's hands and moving them, or we're not physically contacting the client, right? We're vocally telling them to do something. So it isn't a gestural prompt either. A gestural prompt is a small movement indicating what we would like the client to do. We're not doing that either. What we're doing is vocally telling the client to do something after the SD has been delivered. In other words, we're delivering a verbal prompt. Okay. Pretty easy question, but the wording can be a little tricky, right? So don't overthink it. You're vocally telling a client to do something directly after delivering the SD. While we're prompting it, we're vocally telling them it has to be verbal. Therefore, this is considered a verbal prompt. Carmi takes a bite of Marcus's donut before the shift starts. Carmi says, wow, this is really good. Marcus always makes donuts before the shift now. What is a conditioned reinforcer in this scenario? All right. First thing, we know it's a reinforcer question. They're telling us it's a reinforcer question. Now, careful. If they give you a none of the above, make sure it's one of the above, right? But we can assume from the question we have a conditioned reinforcer. So what is a conditioned reinforcer? A conditioned reinforcer is a stimulus that has reinforcing properties that was learned through pairing or learning history. Well, let's take a look, right? Because Marcus is a behavior making donuts. He now does it all the time. So whatever is maintaining and increasing this donut making behavior, we're expecting to be our reinforcer. So Carmi takes a bite of Marcus's donut before the shift starts. Carmi says, wow, this is really good. Now Marcus always makes donuts. So after the bite, Carmi said, wow, this is really good. So what is the conditioned reinforcer? Is it the first donut? Well, the donut isn't the conditioned reinforcer, okay, because we're talking about Marcus's behavior, right? So if we'd say the antecedent was Marcus gave Carmi a donut, Carmi took a bite, which is the behavior. The consequence or the reinforcer was, wow, this is really good. It's leading to Marcus making more donuts. Okay. So the praise, wow, this is really good, is going to be the conditioned reinforcer. The donuts after the praise is just the effect, okay, the ongoing effect of the consequence. And it is not none of the above because it is the praise. If you don't understand why it's the praise, review this question. It's a good one because you have to distinguish the behavior you're looking at between Marcus and Carmi, what they want you to do on the exam. And then we have to identify the proper reinforcement. Okay. In this case, wow, this is really good, is reinforcing the behavior of Marcus. So that makes it the conditioned reinforcer. Praise is not an unconditioned reinforcer. Praise has to be paired with other reinforcers to gain reinforcing properties. Jason will swing his arm towards his RBT every 30 seconds and either hit or pinch them. The RBT typically blocks the arm if they can, but if not, they flinch in pain. The function of the behavior is most likely what? All right, function question. What is going on? Let's look at antecedents. Let's look at consequences. We know Jason swings his arm towards the RBT every 30 seconds and either hit or pinches them. Okay. In response, the RBT blocks the arm or they flinch in pain. Now, Jason apparently is getting plenty of attention for it. Does it appear that Jason is trying to gain access to a tangible? Well, based on this information, no. There's no indication that tangible is involved. Does it appear Jason is trying to escape a situation? Again, no consequence of escape is taking place. The consequence is the RBT blocks the arm or they flinch in pain. So it can't be automatic or sensory because there's a second person involved. Therefore, that leaves us with attention. Nothing indicates Jason is getting anything other than attention. Nothing indicates Jason is escaping from a situation. Nothing, well, we know it can't be automatic sensory because there's a second person involved. Therefore, it has to be attention, especially this flinching in pain or blocking the arm. Jason's getting all this attention for swinging his arm. He continues to do it because the function is attention and he is receiving the desired attention. Assuming Jason does swing his arm at his RBTs for attention every 30 seconds, what would be an appropriate antecedent intervention? A little follow-up question. So Jason is doing it for attention. We now know he's swinging his arm for attention every 30 seconds. And we need an antecedent intervention. Now, what do we know about antecedent interventions? We know they happen before the behavior. Our behavior is what? Jason swinging his arm. We need an intervention that occurs before the behavior of Jason swinging his arm, not afterwards. A, remove a token or other reinforcer every time Jason swings his arm. Is that a consequence? And is that a response to Jason swinging his arm? It is. It's not an antecedent. We need an antecedent intervention. B, praise Jason after 30 seconds if he doesn't swing his arm. Again, antecedent or consequence? Consequence. Praising Jason after 30 seconds if he doesn't swing his arm, that is a consequence. C, continue blocking Jason's arm. Well, if we block Jason's arm, that has to occur after Jason already swings his arm. Again, consequence. Leaves us with D, deliver attention to Jason every 25 seconds. We know Jason swings his arm every 30 seconds. If we deliver attention every 25 seconds, it's coming before the arm swinging. Non-contingent reinforcement, attempting to manipulate the motivation for swinging his arm. Non-contingent reinforcement is a type of antecedent intervention. D is the only antecedent intervention available here. A, B, and C are all consequences of the arm being swung. My 4-month-old daughter woke up at 12 a.m., 2:30 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. last night. What is the second IRT in this scenario? What is IRT? Start there. Most obvious place to start, right? Inter-response time, otherwise known as time in between responses. What are our responses? Daughter waking up. What are our times? 12 a.m., 2:30 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m. See how we're approaching this question? Systematically, calmly, and aggressively. Just going down the list, right? And now we can easily answer this question. We need the second inter-response time. Well, what's our first inter-response time? 12 to 2:30. How long has passed? 2.5 hours, right? Second, 2:30 to 4. How long has passed? Hour and a half. Well, we're looking for that second inter-response time. Hour and a half. B is what we're looking for. What about 4 a.m. to 6 a.m.? That would be 2 hours. Not looking for the third IRT, not looking for the first IRT, looking for the second IRT. 2:30 to 4 a.m., in other words, 1.5 hours. Systematically break down the question, understand it, attack it, and then pick an answer. If you understand it, the more you understand it, the easier it becomes. You are an RBT tasked with determining possible tokens to use with a token economy. If you are starting from the very beginning, which of the following might work best as tokens? Okay. What is a token considered? It's a reinforcer. Is it conditioned or is it unconditioned? It's conditioned. Tokens gain their properties through conditioning, meaning you have a lot of options when choosing tokens because all you're doing is pairing it. They're neutral before then. In this case, the question wants to know which of the following might work best as tokens. A, laminated squares with pictures of preferred images on them. What did we just talk about with tokens? They're conditioned. They're neutral before that. Could you pair a bunch of laminated squares with pictures of preferred images on them with backup reinforcers? Absolutely. That's what we do all the time. What about imitation dollar bills? Well, how do you think money gets its value? It's paired and conditioned. Same thing here. We can certainly pair imitation dollar bills. In particular, if you're working with an older crowd, right? This is a good way to generalize. C, poker chips. Poker chips have value, but why? Because they're paired with real money. That's the reason poker players value poker chips. So if we're starting from the very beginning, which of the following might work best as tokens? Well, all three, essentially, because it's might, right? As long as we can pair one of these with a backup reinforcer, we can create reinforcers. Difficult question, so think it through, okay? Once you understand the concept of conditioned versus unconditioned, primary versus secondary, and how token economies work, it makes a lot of sense. Tokens are paired with backup reinforcers, already established reinforcers, thus creating tokens that are conditioned as reinforcers. That's where they gain their reinforcing property. You can condition squares, dollar bills, or poker chips with other reinforcers. I want pizza, let me go, and what is your name? Are all types of what? All right, verbal behavior question. You don't necessarily need to know the technicalities of these for your exam, but you need to know them as an RBT. So we're going to learn something today, expand your knowledge base. Introverbals are what? Introverbals are conversational, okay? Now, we're looking at this behavior, the asking, I want pizza, let me go, what is your name? We're now looking at the answer, okay? That's important. Or like tax. Well, tax is simply a label. You're labeling something. What is a man? A man is a request. I want pizza, request. Let me go, request. What is your name? Request. All three are types of mans. And then echoics, the most obvious one, echoing what is being said, very prominent in the autism community. Understand these four major types of verbal behavior, even on a surface level. Introverbals think conversation, tax think labels, mans think request, echoics think copying, okay? Here we're making three requests. I want pizza, let me go, and what is your name? All are types of C, mans. The Domino's commercial just now advertised a deal offering 2 pizzas for $5.99. At the end, it said, call for availability. I now want pizza, so I call my local Domino's. The commercial is a what? Okay. MOSD question. Let's be very careful here. Let's break it down. We're talking about the commercial. So the commercial comes first, right? So it has to be an antecedent. It has to be an SD or an MO or a prompt. Well, it's going to come way before any of that, so it can't be a prompt. So it's got to be an MO and an SD. The commercial plays, advertising a deal. And at the end, it says call for availability. So does the commercial say the pizza is available? It does not. But now you want pizza because you watched the commercial. So if something makes you want something, but doesn't say it's available, it's going to be an MO. The Domino's commercial increased the value of pizza, making you want it. Not until you call the Domino's and confirm its availability do you get the pizza. Person at the Domino's telling you it's available can be the SD for ordering because they're going to make it available to you. All the commercial did was increase the value of the pizza, the motivating operation, which comes before the SD. So now you wanting pizza and result of the commercial makes the commercial a motivating operation.